Okay, this is a video I thought about making for quite some time now. Past couple of weeks has more so been contemplating, should I make the video or not, more than what I should make the video about. So here it goes. Overall, I think the Cycling community does a good job with packaging and getting items to manufacturers, and on the industry side of it, actually getting items to bike shops or to from one supplier to the next, for building bicycles and other things along those lines. But overall, I think it could do a lot better when it comes to items that are going directly to consumer. All the non-OE parts, all the aftermarket parts, all the parts that are used for repairs and things along those lines. And the reason I say this is that customers cannot be expected to recycle properly, nor can most bike shops at the end. Most bike shops do a pretty good job of recycling the large boxes that bicycles come in, getting them off to recyclers to be turned into either other paper products or other boxes, or they give them out to customers as much as possible. I remember doing this a lot when I was a mechanic in a bike shop, making sure that I got those boxes as best I could into a recyclable or reused or in some way where it wasn't going into a landfill. But the problem is there's all these other little boxes and there's all these little pieces of plastic and foam and zip ties and tape and 1,000 other items that are used to package items. So this video is a bid to manufacturers, mainly part manufacturers, to go out of their way to try a little harder to make packaging that is either smaller, reduced in the materials that are being used, or much more recyclable, or especially for parts that are going to shops that are mainly for repairs, minimal, almost zero packaging, the absolute minimum that needs to be done. And the reason I say this is that packaging is no longer a major selling item or support item for selling items aftermarket. People do most of their research online, or they're either reading a website or reading a review or watching a YouTube video from someone else to decide if they want to buy a product or not. Going to a store and seeing the product is not going to sway their decision. If it does, it's going to be very little, and the box that it came in is going to make almost zero difference to the person. So really elaborate packaging with colorful prints or anything along those lines is not the determining factor anymore. When I was started in the shops 20 years ago, it did leave an impression on someone that the box looked really nice, a nice glossy shell or good graphics on it, or anything along those lines. It would definitely help bolster the sale of the item, but I really don't see that as a selling point anymore. Now customers really just want the item when they want to put it on their bike right away. Most of the time the shop putting it on the bike, the customer never even sees the packaging unless the shop gives the customer the packaging after they installed the part. Like I said, customers cannot be expected to recycle boxes or anything. Some customers obviously will try their best, and for those customers, I think manufacturers should really focus on making sure that the products they're using are recyclable. Plain cardboard that's not glossy printed, that doesn't have colors on it. Packaging materials on the inside are also highly recyclable. Most plastic bags and things along those lines are not recyclable, so I'd like to see them move away from using plastic bags and maybe more to the biodegradable foams, form-fitted foams. It can be a little ugly. It doesn't have to be this nice, pristine, perfect packaging anymore, I think you really could move to something that's more industrial, more recyclable, more environmentally focused than what we have right now. The other thing is moving to packaging that is more minimally sized. I understand that you have to make products that are stackable and shippable, and sometimes the minimum size of the packaging may not be the minimum size to fit the product. It might be so you can get a certain number of units onto a pallet or to other things like that to get them out to distributors. But most of the time, I think packaging of a lot of these items is bigger than it really needs to be, especially when it comes to crank sets and cassettes, Handlebars, forks normally come in very large boxes. Don't really want to get too much into frames because most people are not buying frames. I think wheel manufacturers have done a pretty good job. The boxes are about as small as they could probably physically make them and get both wheels into the box. A lot of manufacturers have moved to materials on the inside are a little more easily recyclable, although I do see a fair amount of foam, but normally the foam is kept to about a minimum. Some of the most egregious components I see packaged actually come out are shifters that are actually, the shifters are not physically large, but they come in these very large boxes. And normally they come in these very elaborate boxes because it's one of the highlight pieces of the system. Given the size of what's being shipped and the materials that are being shipped with it, it seems to be a little egregious. Also, I think that most manufacturers should move to not including manuals with their items. Moving away from a physical manual that's sometimes quite thick and sizable to something that's a lot smaller. I mean, either just it could just be a business card that has a website address that's saying, all manual materials are here. I know there are some legal limitations of what they have to do and what manufacturers have to provide to an end user. But I know in a lot of countries and a lot of situations now, they don't have to include a gigantic, large manual. I ordered a frame from a company. The manufacturer doesn't matter, but I ordered a frame from a manufacturer and it came with a book that's literally about this thick. Almost an inch or almost 3 centimeters thick, and it had like a zillion different languages in it, and it had all this information that was for a complete bicycle, and all I ordered was a frame. I've ordered frames from many other manufacturers, and they normally come with literally zero information with them, because it's assumed at that point you can either go onto a website or you know what you're doing. They might come with a little tiny warranty card to fill out or tell you where to go do the warranty items. I think things like this need to be considered more heavily in the bicycle world. Like I said, I think on the OE side, it's pretty good. Manufacturers aren't going to get all the manuals. They're going to just get these gigantic boxes with super economy packed, highly recyclable, or things that get shipped back to the original manufacturer to just like dollies, basically dolly up more of the parts so they can ship them back over. Really what this video is focusing is on the aftermarket, what's going to the end user. Overall, like I said, I think the cycling industry does pretty good with keeping packaging to a minimum, but the end user side could really need some, I think manufacturers should really look into it and see if they can minimize their packaging, make their packaging either more reusable or make their packaging highly recyclable at a minimum. I think that's the biggest key, is like anything that does actually have to get to the end user should be highly recyclable. They can just throw it into a recycling bin. They know that it's going to go off and get recycled and turned into something new again. And the reason I say this for the whole cycling industry as a whole, cycling is always viewed as a green sport. It's always viewed as a green activity. The industry as a whole should sponsor this from top, using the item to the very bottom, getting items to people to be used, and everywhere in between. Pushing that greenness probably will actually end up helping the cycling industry in the long run from just a public perception. Because I see a lot of content online talking about how a car could be more green than a bicycle, and we all know that yes, technically, theoretically, it's possible, but as soon as you take it to any manufacturing, it goes right out the door. And if we could just get the packaging greener, it'll drive that point even more home, that bicycles are by far the greenest mode of transportation anyone can take. Even over walking, ironically, as long as people keep their bikes for a long time. I know, for one, I am not a person to keep a bike a long time, but many people do. I know people who have bikes for 20 years. I guarantee you the carbon footprint of that bike is less than actually a person trying to cover that same distance, even by walking. I could do some math. I'm not going to do it. I'll let someone else do it if they want to. If they want to debunk me on that claim, please do in the comments below. That's all I have for today. Just try to be clean, try to be green. And industry, please help these users be clean, be green, be better for the planet. We need to do better. It's so obvious in so many ways. We're pretty good as an industry. We can just tighten it up a little bit better and we'll be golden, or greening. Thanks. Until next time, just red.